Hello everyone, I'm here with my next video on the play Macbeth by William Shakespeare. This is a picture of three witches. Let us quickly read the summary. The play begins with a brief appearance of a trio of witches and then moves to a military camp where the Scottish King Duncan hears the news that his generals Macbeth and Banquo have defeated two separate invading armies, one from Ireland led by the rebel MacDonald and one from Norway. Following their pitched battle with these enemy forces, Macbeth and Banquo encounter the witches as they cross a moor. The witches prophesy that Macbeth will be made Thane, a rank of Scottish nobility, of Cawdor and eventually the King of Scotland. They also prophesy that Macbeth's companion Banquo will beget a line of Scottish kings, although Banquo will never be king himself. The witches vanish and Macbeth and Banquo treat their prophecies skeptically until some of King Duncan's men come to thank the two generals for the victories in battle and to tell Macbeth that he has indeed been named Thane of Cawdor. The previous Thane betrayed Scotland by fighting for the Norwegians and Duncan had condemned him to death. Macbeth is intrigued by the possibility that the remainder of the witches' prophecy that he will be a crowned king might be true, but he is uncertain what to expect. He visits King Duncan and they plan to dine together at Inverness, Macbeth's castle that night. Macbeth rides ahead to his wife, Lady Macbeth, telling her all that has happened. Lady Macbeth suffers none of her husband's uncertainty. She desires the kingship for him and wants him to murder Duncan in order to obtain it. When Macbeth arrives at Inverness, she overrides all of her husband's objections and persuades him to kill the king that very night. He and Lady Macbeth plan to get Duncan's two chamberlains drunk so they will be blackout. The next morning, they will blame the murder on the chamberlains who will be defenseless as they will remember nothing. While Duncan is asleep, Macbeth stabs him, despite his doubts and a number of supernatural portents, including a vision of bloody dagger. When Duncan's death is discovered the next morning, Macbeth kills the chamberlains, ostensibly out of rage at their crime, and easily assumes the kingship. Duncan's son Malcolm and Donalbain flee to England and Ireland respectively, fearing that whoever killed Duncan desires their demise as well. Fearful of the witches' prophecy that Banquo's heirs will seize the throne, Macbeth hires a group of murderers to kill Banquo and his son Fleance. They ambush Banquo on his way to a royal feast, but they fail to kill Fleance, who escapes into night. Macbeth becomes furious. As long as Fleance is alive, he fears that his power remains insecure. At the feast that night, Banquo's ghost visits Macbeth. When he sees the ghost, Macbeth raves fearfully, startling his guests, who include most of the great Scottish nobility. Lady Macbeth tries to neutralize the damage, but Macbeth's kingship incites increasing resistance from his nobles and subjects. Frightened, Macbeth goes to visit the witches in their cavern. There they show him a sequence of demons and spirits who present him with further prophecies. He must beware of Macduff, a Scottish nobleman who opposed Macbeth's accession to the throne. He is incapable of being harmed by any man born of woman, and he will be safe until Birnam Wood comes to Dunsinane Castle. Macbeth is relieved and feels secure because he knows that all men are born of woman and that forests cannot move. When he learns that Macduff has fled to England to join Malcolm, Macbeth orders that Macduff's castle be seized and most cruelly Lady Macduff and her children be murdered. When news of his family's execution reaches Macduff in England, he is stricken with grief and vows revenge. Prince Malcolm, Duncan's son, has succeeded in raising an army in England, and Macduff joins him as he rides to Scotland to challenge Macbeth's forces. The invasion has the support of Scottish nobles who are appalled and frightened by Macbeth's tyrannical and murderous behavior. Lady Macbeth, meanwhile, becomes plagued with fits of sleepwalking in which she bemoans that she believes to be blood stains on her hands. Before Macbeth's opponents arrive, Macbeth receives news that she has killed herself, causing him to sink into a deep and pessimistic despair. Nevertheless, he awaits the English and fortifies Dunsinane, to which he seems to have withdrawn in order to defend himself, certain that the witch's prophecies guarantee his invincibility. He is struck numb with fear, however, when he learns that the English army is advancing on Dunsinane, shielded with boughs cut from Birnam wood. Birnam wood is indeed coming to Dunsinane, fulfilling half of witch's prophecy. In the battle, Macbeth hews violently, but the English forces gradually overwhelm his army and castle. On the battlefield, Macbeth encounters the vengeful Macduff, who declares that he was not of woman born, but was instead untimely ripped from his mother's womb, what we now call birth by caesarean section. Though he realizes that he is doomed, Macbeth continues to fight until Macduff kills and beheads him. Malcolm now, the King of Scotland, declares his benevolent intentions for the country and invites all to see him crowned. So that was the summary. Now let us start with the question and answers. This is remember and answer. Question 1. Complete the following. A part. The witches say that Banquo will be greater than Macbeth because the answer is his children would be kings. B part. Macbeth sees a dagger in the air because the answer is he is hallucinating with ill intent in his heart. C part. The people of Scotland hated Macbeth because the answer is he committed many crimes to hide the first one. He became ruthless and cruel. D part. Lady Macbeth kept washing her hands because the answer is she was guilty of provoking her husband for the murder of King Duncan. E part. The doctor says that Lady Macbeth needs God more than a physician because the answer is he realizes that she is suffering from a psychological illness and not a physical one. F part. Macbeth was surprised when the messenger announced that Birnam Forest was moving towards Dunsinane because the answer is he believes it to be impossible. He realizes he is no longer invincible and that his downfall is inevitable. G part. The answer is, that is, underline the first part. Macbeth's soldiers surrendered without a fight because they were surrounded and they realized that they had nothing to gain by fighting under a leader who was bound to fail. It was wiser to save their lives. H part. Macbeth did not want to fight Macduff because the answer is he had the blood of his family on his hands and he felt guilty about it. Now let us start with the main question and answers. Question 1 is, where do the three witches meet? The answer is, they meet upon the heath, that is the uncultivated land. Question 2, what was strange about the day? The answer is, the day was bright and gloomy at the same time. Question 3, what predictions do the witches make about Macbeth? The answer is they predict that he would be the Thane of Cawdor and the King of Scotland one day. Question 4. What do they say about Banquo? They said that Banquo was lesser than Macbeth and greater, that he was happier than Macbeth, that he wouldn't be king but his children would be. Question 5. How does the first prediction come true? The answer is, two messengers from King Duncan inform Macbeth that he has been made the Thane of Cawdor. Question 6. What does Macbeth see as he walks towards King Duncan's chamber? What does he conclude about that? The answer is, he hallucinates and sees a dagger in the air. He concludes that it is his overworked brain that is creating these false images. Question 7. Why couldn't Macbeth say Amen? The answer is, Amen is said after a prayer which is holy. Macbeth is extremely guilty and overwhelmed by the deed that he has done. There is an inner turmoil. His guilt and sense of moral shame are so strong that he cannot bring himself to say Amen. Question 8. Why does Macbeth look for the witches the second time? The answer is, he looks for the witches a second time because he is desperate to know what the future holds for him, whether he would be able to hold on to power for long. Question 9. What predictions do they make this time? The answer is, they make 3 predictions. Number 1, beware of Macduff. Number 2, no man born of a woman would be able to harm Macbeth. And number 3, Macbeth would never be beaten in battle till Birnam Forest comes to Dunsinane. Question 10. How were these predictions meant to give a false sense of security to Macbeth? The answer is, he got a false sense of security that no one would be able to harm him and that he would be able to retain his hold on power. The witches tell him that he cannot be killed by any man born of a woman and that he will be safe till Birnam Forest comes to Dunsinane. He feels confident that both of these things wouldn't happen. He fails to consider that other than the obvious, there might be other ways for the prediction to come true. With this false sense of safety, he feels he is invincible, and this is what leads to his downfall. Question 11. How does Lady Macbeth's guilt manifest itself? The answer is, Lady Macbeth begins to walk in her sleep. She mutters and mumbles and constantly begins to see blood on her hands. She is plagued by hallucinations. The guilt of murdering King Duncan leads to physiological and psychological problems for her. Question 12. How does Macbeth react to the news of his wife's death? The answer is, he is filled with grief and remorse. He breaks into soliloquy that talks about how brief and pointless life is. He compares life to a candle. Reference to context questions. Question 3. Read the extract and answer the questions that follow. A. Banquo. What are you? To Macbeth, they don't look human. To the witches, are you spirits? Question 1. What was the first prediction made by the witches? How did it come true? The answer is, the first prediction was that Macbeth would become the Thane of Cawdor. It comes true because shortly after a messenger informed him that Duncan had made him the Thane of Cawdor. Question 2. What was Macbeth's reaction when the witches predicted he would be the king? The answer is, he was shocked and shouted at the witches to stay away from him. Question 3. What gesture do the witches make before disappearing? Answer is, they raised their fingers to their lips and vanished. Question 4. What announcement done by King Duncan motivated him to kill him? The answer is, Duncan's announcement that he had chosen his son Malcolm as a successor motivated Macbeth to kill him. B part. Is this dagger what I see before me, the handle towards my hand? Come, let me clutch it. The question is, why did Macbeth see a dagger in the air? What does this tell us about his state of mind? The answer is, he saw a dagger in the air because he was hallucinating. He was seeing a vision induced by his own guilt of wanting to get rid of the king and take the throne for himself. He tells us that this was the beginning of his paranoia and guilt for crimes that he would be committing. Question 2. What hand did Lady Macbeth have in Macbeth's actions? What effect did her deeds have on her? The answer is, it was Lady Macbeth who manipulated and encouraged Macbeth to murder King Duncan. She helped him to cover up the crime as well. However, her deeds led to profound psychological and physiological problems for her. As the guilt of her actions begins to weigh her down, she begins to hallucinate. She sees blood on her hands, which she cannot wash off. Question 3. What shows that Macbeth regretted killing King Duncan? The answer is, he felt sorry for what he had done. He told his wife that it was a sorry sight. Also, when the soldiers said a prayer, he could not bring himself to say Amen. Question 4. Was Macbeth happy as the King of Scotland? The answer is, Macbeth was not happy as the King of Scotland. This was because he had murdered the previous king and had ascended the throne through treacherous means. He lived in fear of being found out. This is also why he committed other crimes in order to keep the original crime hidden. He became ruthless. In consideration of all these events, it would have been impossible for Macbeth to feel happy or joyful. Think and answer. Long answers. Question 1. What role do witches play in bringing about Macbeth's downfall? The answer is, the prophecies made by witches led Macbeth on the path of ambition and violence. Their prophecies plant the seed of ambition in his mind, suggesting that he was destined to become the King of Scotland. He begins to feel invincible. The witches are symbol of dark and supernatural forces, representing temptation, unchecked desire, ambition, and destructive power that eventually leads to one's downfall. The witches first tempt Macbeth with the idea of power and the prospect of becoming the king. He is immediately intrigued by the idea. His ambition drives him to pursue the crown, and this is how the witches manage to trick him first. In the second meeting, they drive him with misleading information. This leads Macbeth to believe he is infallible and gives him a false sense of security. Their success in tricking him stems from the fact that Macbeth is easily swayed. They succeed because his ambition blinds him and becomes his weakness, which they exploit. Question 2. What does Lady Macbeth's sleepwalking tell us about the outcome of uncontrolled ambition? The answer is, her sleepwalking is a pivotal scene in the play. It serves as a powerful symbol of destructive consequences of uncontrolled ambition. Lady Macbeth tries to wash off the imaginary bloodstains from her hands and relives the murder over and over. This scene shows how the guilty conscience has caught up with her and how she is haunted by the memories of the wrongdoings. This scene is a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and a warning to those who may want to walk down his path at any cost. Question 3. Describe the character of Macbeth. The answer is, Macbeth is a tragic hero in the play. His noble qualities give way to unchecked ambition, greed, guilt, and eventually paranoia. At the beginning of the play, he is shown to be brave and respected, a warrior loyal to his king. However, once ambition sets in, he is unable to control it. His desire for power leads him to commit heinous acts of violence and treachery. His downfall is due to his own fault. Unbridled ambition that completely corrupts him. Question 4. Describe Macbeth's state of mind when he goes to kill King Duncan. What does this indicate? The answer is, Macbeth's state of mind as he goes to kill Duncan is one of inner turmoil and conflicting emotions. He is torn between his loyalty to his king and his own ambition. As he approaches Duncan's chamber, Macbeth experiences a range of emotions, including fear and guilt and even a sense of foreboding. He even hallucinates. He sees a dagger hanging in the air, which indicates that his conscience has already begun to feel the weight of the guilt. Question 5. Could Macbeth have avoided the situation he ended up being in? How? The answer is, had he taken a different path and made different choices, Macbeth could have avoided the situation that he found himself in. First, he could have stayed unaffected by the witch's prophecies. He could have refused to be swayed by his dark ambition. He could have remained loyal to King Duncan instead of pursuing power. He could have avoided all the violence and guilt and resultant fear and followed. He could also have sought counsel from someone sensible, such as Banquo. He could have confided about his internal struggle and received support. Finally, he could have acknowledged his mistake and taken responsibility for it soon after the murder. In this manner, he could have avoided all the wrongdoings. He had several opportunities to remain on the right path. However, unfortunately, he took a different and darker path. I hope this video was helpful to you. Do write in comments what else you want and also which part of the story you liked most. Bye.